What is the Moonsoon Wedding about?
Um, when the writer Sabrina Dhawan and I started to talk about this film in New York, where I teach film and she's one of my teaching assistants, we said, you know, there's no film that's yet been made on contemporary modern India the way we know it. We are both Punjabi from Delhi, and we've been born and raised here, and we have a lifestyle like everybody else does, and nobody has yet captured this way. You know, there is the Bollywood way, there is the famine in Bihar way, but there's no way that is just like us, you know. So we wanted to tell a tale that was really close to home, a kind of intimate family film about our family life in this current time in India, which is a total melange of totally modern and totally old, and this wonderful seamlessness that's very powerful in our society, where we open our doors from everything before the British to now the Americans and wherever, but we beg, borrow, steal, assimilate, absorb, twist, and make everything inimitably at the end apni desh, you know, Indian culture, you know. So it's a film that pays homage to that plasticity, that hybridity, that layering, you know. It's a sort of hum aapke, you know, it uses the context of a wedding, which is the context, of course, of Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, but it's also the context of Chekhov and Shakespeare and many other Bollywood movies and many other Hollywood movies. So why do we choose weddings? We choose weddings because it is the time when the family gathers from all over the world, and especially if you want to make a film about bourgeois, modern, contemporary India, in every middle-class Indian family today, there is some member of the family abroad. So it is a context for us to explore this coming together, and as we all know, when families get together, skeletons come out of the closet, secrets emerge, politics happens, romance happens, illicit liaisons happen, all kinds of things happen. And so we simply chose that as a context to kind of explore the human condition, but do it in the Punjabi way, which is as we are known for our capacity for life and our...
So what is this foreign audience loving? Is it the Punjabi way of presenting the spectacle that kind of ensues, or the universality of probably the theme, which probably happens in a Latin American marriage or a Japanese wedding or whatever?
I think, you know, we made the film so intimately, so much like you were sitting at my dining table in Vasant Vihar, honestly, you know. That when I was showing the film first in the Cannes Film Festival, in which was truly my first ever audience, because when I was cutting the film in New York, I refused to show it to really anybody, because I wasn't making the film for the New Yorkers. I wasn't testing the movie like I do with my Hollywood stuff. I was just making the movie for myself, and so I kind of was in this resolute कि भाई अपन के style में बना रहे हैं, तो अपन के लिए है, तो क्या दिखाने का इनको. So the first audience was in Cannes in the market. And I was just so nervous. You know, I didn't know what, I had to leave in the middle of the screening and go drinking because I just didn't know what I had done. And I left, and there was a party afterwards, and I went to the party, and as soon as I arrived, everybody had come out of the movie, and they came up to me, and I heard this one line, one after the other. The line was, "How did you know to make a film about my family? I'm from Iceland. I'm from Southern California, I'm from India, I'm from, you know, Malaysia." This is what they felt, you know. And I think when one makes something in any art form, in any workplace, when one makes something with a kind of truth and a passion perhaps, but most importantly with a kind of authenticity that is totally local, so that my people, I mean, my whole family is in this movie, so I mean, like they you know, if it convinces like my family and for its reality, then it becomes sort of the local aspect of it becomes kind of universal, I'm discovering, you know. But it was certainly not made with the intention of, you know, there's no formula to reach people, you have to move them, you know.
Which brings me to my next question, is that your films have mostly, all your films have had Indian concerns, in the sense that they have, except I suppose the one with Latin Americans and stuff. The rest of it is completely about Indians, sometimes set in the heart of India, like say Bombay or stuff. But this one film now seems to be made with an eye on the Indian audience as against a wider international audience that the other films looked at. What do you say to that? Is that a conscious?
Well, I make films. I'm an independent filmmaker. By that I mean I produce and direct my films. I'm also a very active mother and wife and sister-in-law and all those things. So, you know, for me to set my mind onto making a film, I have to take my time away from my family and from my life. It is my life in a way. So I make films that just get under my skin. I make films that don't let me go, you know. So they have to be obsessive acts. And I have to say that I have to please myself first in some way, whether it be challenging myself with a new style or a medium or an idea or whatever. But it has to stay with me to continue to work so hard for it before and after. And so I don't really always think at all of audiences beforehand. But I have to say, having made my work, that Salaam Bombay and now Moonsoon Wedding were the two films that I made hoping and dreaming that I could reach an Indian audience. For Salaam, it was, I hope the street kids who loved Bollywood cinema, whom we paid tribute to in our film, would see this movie like ticket mein leke, black market mein becho and this kind of thing, which is how they sold, by the way, the tickets of Salaam. And fortunately, that film ran for like 27 weeks in Bombay, and that was my greatest, you know, feeling, more than the camera door, more than all this stuff. I have to say, after that, of course, all the other films were designed much more and marketed much more for international. There were different themes. But Moonsoon Wedding is so close to home. And that's why I insisted the first release would be in India. It opens worldwide on November 30th. I mean, opens in India and then worldwide on November 30th. And I hope, you know, but it's a very experimental film. It's not what people are used to seeing in the sense of style. We have 5 different parallel stories that take place in 5 days and nights leading up to the wedding. It's all shot with a handheld camera. It's fluidly made through no sets, all locations from farmhouses to streets of Chandni Chowk to the, you know, Shiva temples to the, you know, the roofs of Asaf Ali Road. I mean, it's all over Delhi. And it's made with 68 actors, most of them, some of them great legends, and most of them never faced a camera before. All my family is acting in the film. Everything from my family car to the jewelry to the underwear to the saris to my relatives, of course, are all in the movie. So it's a real family flick. But it seems to sort of have this synergy of love in it, and it is a synergy that we of course aspired for, but haven't made many films. It's not something you can just concoct and know that it's something that either happens or doesn't happen.
When you look back, say on your very distinguished film career, do you see a pattern there? Do you see sort of step-by-step progression in your filmmaking as technique and as your concerns?
The only pattern I see is perhaps a foolish pattern of never wanting to repeat myself, you know, never always trying to work without a safety net, you know, which sometimes makes life very difficult, but it's the only way I know to do, because I kind of have to take risks. There is no point for me to do what I know how to do already, you know. And in trying to do something new only for myself, not for the world, for myself each time, there is a kind of adrenaline and there's a kind of, you know, danger and fantastic danger to it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And the wonderful thing about life is that those rhythms teach you things. You know, I really believe in what the Sufis say. They say all things will pass. And I've had this kind of fame early on. I've been in the doghouse, and I'm back in a kind of, you know, good place, and yet it'll pass. So I have this sort of a little bit of distance from it all, from the public nature of it. But the private nature of it is still very important to me. And I feel like when I see Moonsoon Wedding, the one thing I feel is perhaps I have you know, there's a sort of assuredness in the cinema of it, because we did do a lot in very little.
But
you know,
invariably, coming back to this Sufi detachment.
Yes, passionate detachment.
But it feels nice to be covered in glory.
Sure, and I've been for some years certainly not covered in glory, and also not knowing what I wanted to do, and trusting that, not, you know, not just working for work's sake, but waiting for something that really had to speak to me to make, you know. Yes, of course. What feels best is really to move people. I mean, when we first showed the movie in this fairly cool Venetian aristocratic tamasha in Venice, you know, with 1,500 Venetians who are not known to be the lusty, warm Napolitanos as the Naples people are. They are the aristocrats of Italy. They're cold people with diamonds and gowns. And I remember when 23 of us strong battalion from India was coming up, you know, the stairs and all that tamasha. And we were sitting down, and Nasir was on one side, and the cast and the crew. It was beautiful. And movie began, and I wasn't, you know, it's really full of desi humor and syntax, and uska naam hai Parbatlal Kanhaiyalal Dubey, but he calls himself PK Dubey, and people get, only we'll get these jokes, right? But, you know, so I wasn't so sure ki kaise chal raha hai. And then in the middle of the movie, there is a moment when these people just literally leapt out of their seats in the middle of the film and started clapping and cheering, and then they sat down again and proceeded then to weep with some other action that was happening, and then proceeded to, when the film began, you know, ended, dance and clap in the Bhangra rhythm for about 15 minutes. I mean, it was, Nasir is saying to me, you know, like, are we in Bombay or are we in Venice? You know, so I really, one doesn't know, one never knows when you make a work how it will reach to people, you know. And that, and sort of to Punjabi-ize Venice till 4 a.m. doing the Bhangra was, you know, almost better than the Golden Lion, let me tell you, you know, because the point was that it had affected people. They couldn't restrain themselves. It was nothing to do with learning about India or something like that. It was about being affected.
India, see,
yeah.
like, we as people are reactive to any art form, most particularly cinema. Like you are talking about your film, and you know that when you went to the Oscars with Salam Bombay, there was no official Indian recognition or contingent to back you up there. Do you think we, you know, hail somebody as great only when the foreigners have done that as a reaction to that?
I think there's a certain degree of truth to that, where, although in this case of Salam Bombay, that didn't help either. Where I had the bloody nomination and I didn't have a telegram. So, you know, it didn't compute your theory. But, yeah, you know, we've lived with it from the time of Rabindranath Tagore, you know, I mean, you know, and also Satyajit Ray. I mean, he was so great. And I remember seeing, despite my knowing him and my, you know, going to see him every year and so on, I saw his movies for the first time in America, you know, because they were simply not available, you know. So we have a problem, definitely. But I also feel that in the last year or so, I've been feeling a great sense of openness with our people, in terms of just allowing different things to happen, and a kind of a graciousness, a hospitality to not always feel like if you're a filmmaker you have to fight the battle, you know, with the government or whatever. So I hope it's changing. It should change.
Fighting the battle, that brings me to the gender question. Are you, do you look upon yourself as a filmmaker or a woman filmmaker, or do you think that being a woman, which is in the filmmaking fraternity probably a minority community, do you think it brings in a different sensibility, or a sense of activism?
You know, I'm an independent filmmaker, in that I produce and direct my work, and I insist on complete creative freedom, which by its very nature puts me apart from wanting to be on the A list of Hollywood directors or whatever. If I wanted to be in that list, then I probably would have felt the mantle of womanhood and all that. But I'm not engaged in that. I'm engaged in really exploring my own take on the world and my own vision of the world in my own way. And since I'm a woman, and I'm totally thrilled to be one, I certainly bring that to my films. Having said that, there are no stereotypes of how a woman sees the world necessarily. I remember being quite delighted with Salam Bombay when I first was known, that a lot of people just presumed I was a man, you know, and because they were sort of stunned by the ruthlessness and the kind of unsentimentality of the film. And just as I am deeply in love with women and deeply in love with seeing the world sensually, I really do, I am equally unsentimental, for instance. So there is no one womanhood way of seeing the world. You know, it's particular to each person. And so I don't feel, you know, I feel totally empowered by being not just a woman, but definitely one from India, you know. And so, you know, because I'm seen now as somebody who makes my own kind of movies, I'm not put in any kind of other category, you know. It's not like I'm trying to be somebody else. That would be a dilemma then, you know.
Tell me the process of making the film in terms of putting together the finances, the distribution, the printing. I mean, there are all sorts of things besides creativity that one needs to put together to make a film. How difficult is it to do for, you know, somebody quite as young as you are?
Well, you know, after making films with very much larger budgets and, you know, I just wanted to go back to the basics. I wanted to prove to myself, even though I could raise more money than I did for this one, that it was sort of, I wanted to make an experiment in what I call democratic socialist filmmaking, you know, where we would go back to a budget that was even less than Salam Bombay, which I made 12 years ago when I was nobody and when I didn't have access to money. Because I wanted to, you know, try to prove to myself that really movies are not about lights and special effects and millions of rupees. They are about the essence of a good story, great cast, the craft, the discipline, the urgency, and not about all the sort of, what do you call it, the obfuscations, you know, the facades the slickness that we are now associating with feature films, you know. So actually I just decided before the script was even finished that we would make this film in 30 days. And we would make it with a handheld small camera, Super 16 camera, that would link the 5 different worlds of this movie and would preserve the fluidity and make it possible for me to capture the myriad faces of Delhi life. And that we would have, you know, 68 actors and so on. But it was, I fooled myself into thinking it was a little movie because actually it was a large, vast, opulent movie. It's also about an opulent wedding, which in itself is a tamasha to construct. So the way we did it was to have 2 weeks of a workshop with all the actors. It was like a play. We sat in an empty room and we did yoga for an hour and a half every morning, and then we proceeded to read the script. So everybody knew their place in the world of the Verma family. And then we took, you know, we just detailed script improvisations and rehearsals and sat with Sabrina Dhawan, the writer, and sculpted every night what was the good improvisations and what should be cut out, and constantly, you know, refined the script until the last week before shooting, when I took all the actors to the dressed set, which was a friend's house, and you know, designed for the camera and for the actors exact blocking and choreography, so that by the time we were ready to shoot the following week, we filmed 8 scenes a day and just flew. You know, 30 days we shot this vast movie, and we, you know, I wanted to say this because I really wanted to prove to myself, madly enough, you know, that it's possible to do this. You know, for young people, if they have a good idea and if they know how to say it, to surround themselves with people like I did who took them further and will take you further, and to pull this. You can do this, you know. It's a huge amount of work, but it's possible to do, you know. So it's not like an unrealizable thing, you know. That was kind of the idea, the inspiration that fueled this particular process.
Do you think this the Golden Lion is a validation for what you set out doing? I mean, creating a sort of complete antithesis to, say, somebody like Spielberg?
The thing about the way we worked is not, it doesn't look like it's a struggle. It looks completely delightfully easy, and you know, like you're sitting at my dining table and you're a fly on the wall in my house, you know. That's how it looks. So it's not, and it's very opulent at the same time. I mean, my whole family are in the movie wearing beautiful saris, jewelry, the cars, the underwear, the great paintings. We have Jamini Roys, we have amazing Vivan Sundarams, we have amazing painters in this movie, just because that's the way I love to live, and I just got it all. So it doesn't look like we were struggling. It looks like we could be Spielberg, you know. But the point is, it was made in this democratic, in this sort of socialist way, you know. I don't know, the Golden Lion was a completely unexpected honor, totally, because we made it like this, without thinking of reward. We made it as a journey of experimentation, really. But what happened, I think, is we created in this amazing group of actors and crew a sense of family, a real sense of bonhomie. And what happens in the film is it just explodes with that love, which is impossible to direct. It either happens or it doesn't happen. And there's a kind of euphoria that audiences seem to feel that, you know, I guess, but again, it's a euphoria that doesn't get you prizes. It sells tickets. It doesn't bring golden lions, you know. So it was totally a shocker that you could, I felt like I wanted to make a populist movie, and I was hardly believing I could be at a festival, leave alone win such a serious honor, you know. But I'm moved, and I guess there is a purity that the jury responded to. C'est la vie, we're taking it and running.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that's it.